Hey friends, welcome to the Don't Stifle Me podcast. My name is Jacob Stee-full, and this is episode 52 of this little podcast experiment I started just a little over a year ago, March of 2017. And it's been a great year. I've had some awesome talks, met some really cool people, hung out with some people that were already friends, and I'm still enjoying it. And I know there's some of you out there that are still listening and enjoying it, so I'm going to keep on trucking with it. When I'm not podcasting, I am also a singer and songwriter and artist myself. And if you're interested in checking out my music, it's on Apple Music and Spotify and all the things under Jacob Stifle. And you could also find more things at jacobstiefel.com. That's JACOBSTIEFEL.com. As for the podcast here, if you would like to be involved and help support it, help keep the things going, and get some behind the scenes access, you can go check out patreon.com/DSM podcast. For a few bucks a month, you can help, keep the wheels greased and moving forward. But for now, for the episode today, number 52, my guest is a fella by the name of Don VanCleave. Don is the artist manager for an Americana country artist named Brent Cobb. I don't know if you know Brent or not, but you should go listen to his music. It's fantastic. And the band Moon Taxi. And he owned and ran a record store in Birmingham, Alabama for a while. He managed Lenny Kravitz for a stint. He helped found Record Store Day. He's done all kinds of cool shit. He's a great guy. It was awesome sitting and talking with him and hearing about all of it. So here it is, my talk with Don VanCleave.
Pick it up from piano.
Thing, Don VanCleave. What would you? So you're an artist manager. That's your title.
That's
right?
what I do. Yeah, that's the current career phase that I'm in.
Yeah. So for the general public that might not know, what does that contain, or what do you do?
You just kind of guide the career of the artist, and mainly it's making sure you've built a strong team of talented specialists around that artist and kind of keeping them all informed of what's going on, across their different categories. So I generally, am managing a team of, between the label, the business management, the lawyer,
kind of like the ringleader.
I have to kind of deal with every entity of the act's career and make sure everybody's working together to really, move the ball forward. But we plan, touring, we plan album cycles where, we plan, in conjunction with our team, the best way to roll out new products, new videos, schedule everything, schedule every interview.
I'm tired just thinking about it.
Travel to a lot of shows. Sometimes you're down there handpicking, the sound guy and suggesting the guitar, a new guitarist, or I tend to kind of want to leave the creative up to the creative people, and then I want to go execute on the strategy. So that's kind of where I tend to practice management.
Cool. And who are you working with now?
I have Brent Cobb, who is an Americana country artist. He gets lumped into Americana now because I think he's hashtag too country for country.
Yeah.
And he's a Grammy nominee for Americana Album of the Year this past year. He's out on a headline tour, sold out all the major East Coast markets this past week.
Yeah,
and,
that's awesome.
He's dropping new songs and has a new record coming out May 11th.
Oh, yeah.
And it's produced by cousin Dave Cobb, and we're real excited about that. He's getting a lot of good feedback. The shows are going great, and then we go out starting in June. We go out the rest of the year with Chris Stapleton again. with him. And then I also have a 10-year client, Moon Taxi, which they're doing pretty great right now. We've got a top 10 song at alternative radio. We've had a number one at AAA. One of the songs they did, and we kind of put up on our own and nurtured on our own. We're like at 90 million streams now on that song, and a lot of TV and commercials. So I kind of run on that team. I have a good buddy of mine is partnering with me on the live side. So he works with the agents to kind of route the touring and working with the radio people to figure out how we play radio shows. And then I deal with publicity and the record label, and kind of the overall strategy of the band and the publishers and the global part and, the international companies.
You got your hands in everything.
So I have two acts that tour now internationally and on major labels. And then I have a couple that I'm developing.
Nice. Well, way back before all that, where is Mr. VanCleave from? Oh, you said your dad is Mr. VanCleave, right? You said
my dad's Mr. VanCleave. I'm done. I was born here in Tennessee and grew up, though, in Macon, Georgia, which was the hotbed of Southern rock and the Capricorn years, and the Allman Brothers lived there, and that was my high school.
Oh, wow.
Dazed and Confused, that movie is about my high school senior year. It's period correct.
Yeah.
Except lay on that the Allman Brothers lives down the street from your school.
Wow.
And that's kind of the way I grew up, really loving music, exploring music. I had a lot of older cousins and that were really introducing me to a wide variety of stuff. And, I was listening to 50s jazz in the late 70s as a late high school, early college guy. I play guitar, but it's more of a couch noodle kind of guy.
Yeah.
I don't do it for the consumption of others. But I have a nice little stash of guitars, and I'll sit around and amuse myself.
Very cool. So did you play? Did you start playing like in high school and start?
Yeah, I played in high school, and I was in a high school band, and played in the talent show and all that. But just quickly got more interested in the business side of the music business, and went to college and spent a few years.
Where'd you go to college?
At Georgia Tech, and I ended up spending a few years as an engineer in an unrelated field. But I kept thinking about music.
Yeah.
And in the mid '80s, I got my first CD player, and right when CDs came out, and it was like, oh my God, this is going to change the universe.
Yeah.
And then some guys opened CD-only stores in Dallas that were very cool and clean and had framed stuff on the wall.
A
hipper, cleaner presentation of buying music, and I really loved it, and their selection was really amazing. And I just got together with them and figured out how to go open a record store.
Were you living out there?
I was living in Dallas, but my wife and I moved to Birmingham, Alabama, and opened a record store.
Oh, cool.
And we chose Birmingham because there wasn't any competition there.
Huh, smart. Yeah.
And we had never really been there. It was a little bit of a culture shock moving there from Dallas. But we opened a record store there and had a record store for 14 years and won Best Small Store in America twice from the big industry.
So were you doing mostly vinyl records? Or was
it was all CDs.
All CDs. So
vinyl had gone away.
Yeah, okay. So it was the same kind of
the
thing.
labels had quit making vinyl, period. All through the 90s, it was all about CDs. I started in the late 90s. I started working with all the really good independent record stores in the U.S. I represented them to the industry, right? I would go and cut them deals to help them compete with the Best Buys and the Targets of the world. iTunes wasn't invented yet, but I was helping to protect the independent record store. And then we started noticing as things were moving digital that our used vinyl was picking up. And so we started begging the record labels to make new vinyl. I started importing tons of vinyl from the UK, from EMI, all those labels over there.
They were still making them.
They were making them over there, and I
Okay.
started importing them and then distributing them throughout record stores in the United States. Started building a demand up. We started getting the record labels to make vinyl, and then eventually we started Record Store Day, which
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. That was around the late 90s, early 2000s?
no, Record Store Day was 2007
Okay.
when the idea came. It came actually from a guy that wasn't one of my stores, but was part of another coalition of stores.
Yeah.
Bull Moose up in Maine. He said, "Look, there's a comic book store day. We ought to have a record book store." And I hadn't heard of a comic book store day, but apparently it was a big deal. And then we had another guy that had a big comic book store and also a record store, Criminal Records in Atlanta. He was like, "Yeah, comic book store is great. Here's how we ought to do Record Store Day." We had another guy that ends up now who runs Record Store Day jump in. So we had multiple meetings and knocking heads over how we would get that thing together, and had to talk the stores into participating because they had just gotten Christmas paid off, and
Yeah.
they didn't want to be buying a bunch of new product speculatively. And we got Metallica on board. We got a publicist. I got all the titles that first year. I think we had 18 titles that I scored. And,
Special for Record Store Day.
yeah, like just record store exclusives.
Yeah.
That blew out real quick, and so the stores were all giddy. On the first one, they're like, "Oh my God, let's do this again next weekend."
Yeah.
It was the biggest for some of them. It was the biggest day in the history of their store.
Wow.
And then we knew we had something. Later that year, I left to go into management. But really proud of that first one, and
Yeah, that's awesome.
we got it off the ground. We got a good infrastructure for how it was supposed to live corporately.
Yeah.
Who owned what
Has
were
it
the
been every year since
URLs?
then?
Yeah, it's bigger every year since
Yeah.
then. This year it's now global. It's in every country in the world and I think they put out between 500 and 600 things on Record
Man.
Store Day now, compared to the 18
yeah.
that we did the first year.
That's cool. So when you graduated college, did you graduate from Georgia Tech?
Yep.
What was your degree in?
Industrial engineering.
Cool. So you, at that time, music was, the music business you said was always kind of in your mind, but you went and you engineered in another field or whatever for a while.
I didn't know that I wanted to be in the music business when I was leaving Georgia Tech and going into my profession.
Yeah.
I kept coming back to music. I was raised in a musical household, and always my mom sang in choirs, and
Yeah.
I saw Elvis twice, and went to every concert, and
Right.
had been backstage with Leonard Skinner as a 16-year-old. I had these privileges that I knew were privileges, and I liked it. I liked the music business. I thought it was cool. Phil Walden was the big hot shot in town. He managed all those bands and had managed Otis Redding, and he was a legend. And,
Yeah.
it was cool because the town's, 100,000 people and in the middle of South Georgia.
Right.
So it's not supposed to be hip. But when I was in high school, it was one of the hippest spots on the planet.
Yeah.
A lot of people were moving there. A lot of bands could be seen walking around there. I went towards engineering, kind of figuring out, how to make money more than follow a passion.
Right.
And then it became clear to me that the passion was going to overtake any consideration of money. So,
Yeah.
So we opened a record store.
That's awesome. So so I guess the record store was kind of the door opening into the music business for you as far as your career wise.
Yeah, no, that's the only way I could figure out how to get in.
Yeah.
I mean, I could either go join, a record store in Dallas where we were living.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to remotely reach a record label or a promoter
Right.
or whatever. And I'm just some fanboy who's now turning 30. And, I'm already too old to be like the flunky around the office. I already had a kid and was making a real salary. And, I had to make money.
Can't just start in the mailroom.
I had to make money.
Yeah.
So the only way I could figure out how to do it was to just go into business for myself.
Yeah. When did you said around 08, 09 was when you went into management? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I opened a record store in 1988, and I went into management in 2008.
Okay.
So 20 years in retail.
At some point, you were in L.A., right?
Only because I flew there 30 times a year.
Oh, okay.
I was tied to an L.A. The first thing I did after retail was I have a good friend, Gary Gersh, and he had been a really noted A&R guy. He had signed Nirvana and had signed Counting Crows, and he signed a lot of, really badass acts that blew up in the late 80s, early 90s. So we had become friends as I represented these stores. I had become friends with him and worked with him on, early Radiohead days and things like that.
Yeah.
So he kept reaching out to me. He had started a management company later. He helped put the Foo Fighters together and had managed them for a good while. He ended up working at a big technology company and then decided he just wanted to be a manager. So he had the Counting Crows and John Legend and a few other acts. And just said, hey man, I want you to come in as a partner in the company. So, and I'm like, I'm living in Birmingham. He's in LA. And I'm like, as long as I can stay here in Birmingham, where the cost of living is
slightly smaller than LA.
Slightly less than LA, I could actually do really well at this. So I wanted to I saw it as my opportunity after being in retail to, jack it up what I was doing.
Right.
And, again, the grass is always greener. But so 5 days in to leaving independent retail, that was a big announcement. And then I had to wait, I stayed there. I think I gave a 4-month notice.
Yeah.
Because I'd helped them start this organization. I'd been running it for 15 years. We had just launched Record Store Day. We had a distribution company that was 7 or 8 years old at that point. It was a lot and a lot of employees. So I wanted to, I didn't have a problem with anyone, and I'm still buddies with everybody. It was just, I needed to move on and do something else. Right. But I did, spend a lot of time transitioning them over to try to, and then I stayed on as, just a consultant kind of helping the leadership there for another year probably. So it was a very measured and calculated kind of handover. And I started working with this management company in LA 5 days, 5 days in.
Allergies. Yeah.
So 5 days into working at that management company, the guy that I worked with scored Lenny Kravitz as a client and said, hey, he's yours.
Oh.
And I'm like,
all right.
So I'm like, oh, okay. So for a while there, I was COO of the company, meaning I had to deal with a lot of the finances and budgets and working with all the business managers of all the acts to get all the money in the door. And I was the day-to-day responsible for Lenny Kravitz. So
jumping right in.
Yeah. I mean, right in to the point that he had, so was also heavily involved at that point in Modest Yahoo and a few other, those are the two that I really spent the most time on, Lenny Kravitz and Modest Yahoo at that point. And, Lenny, when we came in the door, he already had a 55-city kind of large venue tour of Europe scheduled, and we decided to put his first record out in a deluxe edition to coincide with the tour. So I had to organize all of that from scratch. I had to go over to Paris, and we brought all the promoters in, all their the press in from all the towns he was coming to. The promoters would pay to send press. Yeah. And we did a giant news conference, and I had to, do 22 interviews with him in one day, and started really kind of living with him in Paris, and then back and forth a lot, going on tour, making records in the Bahamas.
So this whole time, are you still married with with one child? How many kids?
I have 3.
3 kids. Were they still in Birmingham?
They were. Some of them were away at college, and one was still in Birmingham at that point. So, I was on the road a lot then, but it was good because I was now managing Lenny Kravitz and helping and making more money. So that was all good. It was stressful. I mean, he's a wild, flamboyant kind of guy who's really not wild. He's really kind of a homebody, but a really nice guy, but has eccentric taste and expectations and things like that. So I learned a lot with him. He ultimately, left to go back to a guy who managed him for like over 10 years, and they're still together. Yeah. But I had a great time for those couple of years with him, and learned a lot. I'm sure. Learned a lot globally about how to do things on a global level.
You coming from, because a lot of people that I know of that on the management side of things work their way up either from, being a roadie or doing whatever on the touring side.
Yeah, there's multiple ways to get there.
But you coming from the record store side of things, being able to have that knowledge of on that side of the industry.
My whole history was dealing with end customers and the record industry as far as the retail sides of the record labels. Right. So I was record labels all the way to like people handing. So, one thing about, me as a manager that I think's unique is I'm one of the few that stood in the middle of their own record store for over a decade, taking cash straight from people's hands and handing them music and turning them on to music. So I think I got a good foundation for like how the consumer thinks.
Yeah, what they want.
Because I interacted with so many of them. Now it's changed, but I get it. I get that ultimately, if people don't choose to stream you now, that's as bad as them not picking your disc up when they came in the store. It's the same thing. So
where do you see that? Where do you see all that going? Because I
see it just growing huge. I mean, they're not in South Korea, they're not in China, they're not in India. I think you'll see the day where a big song is 5 or 6 billion streams instead of 1 to 1.5 billion streams. Yeah. And I think everything, we're already kind of seeing it. Back in the traditional model days, say that even on Moon Taxi, like we've got now 5 and 6-year-old records that I doubt are in many record stores. They're in Crimies, but if we just had to rely on the income of that,
of physical,
we would. It would probably not be manufactured. It would be what's called out of print.
Yeah.
But with streaming, we're making, it streams all day, every day, all night, every night, and it's cumulative. It really adds up when you've got a lot of songs on the service. Yeah. And you've got them. We have quite a few that are in the millions and a few that are in the tens of millions. And it's, it has definitely changed the way, we look at the whole commerce of music, but it's just gonna stream forever. Right. Yeah. It's not like they can put it out of print unless they pull it off the services or the services go away. I think it's, ultimately a really good thing. I still buy a lot of vinyl. I'm still loving that all the stores that I left 10 years ago to go pursue my management thing. Yeah. It's really cool to see that they're all pretty much thriving and doing really well. So yes, I think it's a good world. Now, with music stores back in business, being music stores, and artists being in a lot of control. with the streaming services. I mean, with Moon Taxi's Too High, that's now at 90 million streams. I mean, we were the label. We used our Spotify relationships. We put that out ourselves.
Yeah, so
we recorded it. You know, the band produced it and mixed it. I mean, it's a homegrown thing.
Nice. Have you been with them since they started?
I mean, they were already started, but I've been with them a long time.
Yeah.
2008.
Okay.
So yeah, 10 years coming up.
Yeah, it's such a different thing as far as putting out music, because a lot of people, it used to be you put out a full album, so it was you would think about all the songs going together and fitting together, and people buying that for the whole experience. And especially now with streaming, like, people don't get the whole thing. Even if people are still downloading songs, they don't download the whole CD for, a lot of people.
No, it's a whole different model now. It's not an album-based model. And, it's like people will listen all the way through, and we do talk about albums, but, it almost is like, what gets playlisted gets heard by more people. What doesn't get playlisted get discovered by people that are checking you out. And if you're doing a good job, more and more and more people around the world are checking you out. It's a global business now. It's like with my acts, I totally route based on a route outside of the U.S. based on on streaming data.
Yeah, you look at this.
I send Brent Cobb or Moon Taxi into Stockholm or Oslo, and they both sell out like.
Because you can look and see that people there are streaming.
They're huge markets for them there.
Yeah.
Amsterdam's, it's like I know where those markets are just because I see all the data.
Yeah.
On where people live.
What I was looking at a guy, Dale Watson is out of Austin.
Sure.
I saw where he just recently left Austin and moved to Memphis, and is trying to get I've heard there's a little buzz going on with the Memphis area. Have you heard anything about?
Just yesterday, I was talking to a girlfriend of mine who goes to Memphis a lot on business.
Yeah,
and I hadn't heard that, and she said, there's something going on in Memphis.
Yeah,
she goes, there's a little scene starting over there.
I've heard some talk here in the last few months.
I want to go check that out because it's been a tough market for bands to go play, and it's been more of a hip hop market, and some as far as successful music markets recently, it's been more of a hip hop market.
Yeah. When did you start working with Brent, old Georgia boy?
Started working with him in about March of 2016.
Yeah. I met Brent not long after I moved to town in 2009. I was over at a friend, our buddy Adam Fisher. I was over his apartment hanging out, and there was this old Georgia country boy with short hair sitting over on the couch. Yeah. And hey man, I'm Brent. And we ended up hanging out that night, and he's a good old shit.
He is a good dude.
Yeah. Do you have like an ultimate, like a goal that you're working toward? Like when you started getting into the music management thing, or are you just doing what you're passionate about and seeing?
Yeah, I'm not that. I don't have stated goals. I mean, I just want to stay in the game and stay on top of everything, and have a good time. I mean, that's all I try to do is have a really good time.
Yeah, I've talked with people because I've got a civil engineering degree, and I moved up here after I graduated from college and been playing music and been involved in music since then, and have not ever had an engineering job. But I've talked with people, like especially friends from school, from college, that did graduate and get engineering jobs. And of course, the grass is always greener thing. Like, I'm looking at them and their steadiness and everything.
No, there's no doubt. I mean, it's a super successful line of work that you can retire in, once you get established. But I was never that interested in that. I was like, I felt like also my mother was good enough to have been signed and never got out of the gospel world and really went into the commercial. She never went to a studio and got recorded or anything. And I think she had regrets. And she told me those regrets her whole life. And I knew just a couple of years into being not in the music business, I knew that I was going to have regrets. And I think that's what drove me more than anything.
Yeah, I've talked with a lot of people that have engineering jobs, and they're always asking me. They're like, "Well, so what are you doing? Where are you going next? What's going on?" And they said, well, if you're waking up happy in the morning, just do it. Do whatever you can.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's been I've been successful, so I don't know that I would have done any better if I'd stuck with that.
Yeah. If you had to give yourself some advice when you were like in college or shortly out of college, what would you tell yourself?
Man, that is really a good question. I think save early, save often.
Yeah,
would have probably been the first thing, because I skipped some years there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I had such a weird kind of path to getting to where I am now. I think that if I had screwed it up by giving myself advice, I wouldn't be sitting here.
A lot of people.
I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
I think it's just. I wouldn't. I don't know how I would really change the path I had by giving myself advice.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people say, well, it wouldn't have mattered what I said, because if I went back and told myself at 18, I'd have just said,
Yeah, I wouldn't have listened.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, I know you're a busy man. I know you probably got stuff to do all day, but thank you so much for talking, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Don VanCleave, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you check out the two acts that Don is working with right now, Brent Cobb and Moon Taxi. It's all good music. I'll have links to both the websites and more over on the show notes page at don'tstifleme.com/052. If you enjoyed this talk, check out the other ones. There's been 51 before this one. But please subscribe, share with anyone you think might be interested, but also go check out patreon.com/DSM podcast. Over there for $1, $2, $3 a month, very, very little, less than a cup of coffee. You can check out, you can get behind the scenes access to pictures, videos, things that go on behind the scenes here, MP3s from some of the jamming that I do with guests in the studio here. Speaking of that, it's about time that I go through and edit out some of those MP3s to post up for you to download. Anyway, I digress. If you want to check that out, once again, that is patreon.com/DSM podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for still listening all the way up until right now. It's awesome. You are a fantastic human being. If you want to follow the podcast on social media, it is at DSM Podcast, and I post up when the new episodes come up. You can go to the website and you can sign up for the email list, and I'll email you every now and then. Not too much. Or you could just check out the social medias. My social medias are all at Jacob Stee-full. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I will talk to you again very soon. This is me playing the guitar in the background here, by the way. Don didn't feel like jamming, so this is just me picking around on something that I felt like playing for you. Okay, now I'm really gone. See ya.